A violent storm tears across the mountains as Alpha King Kael returns from war. His guards expect to find his hidden den destroyed. The cave is silent. His 3 young pups are asleep, curled tightly around a young woman no one has ever seen before. She is covered in scratches. Her clothes are torn. One pup is sleeping on her chest. Another is holding her hand. The youngest refuses to let go of her hair. Fresh food sits beside them. The den has been cleaned. The fire is still warm. Kael slowly reaches for his sword. Then every pup wakes at once. Instead of running to their father, they hide behind the sleeping stranger. Rain lashed against the mountains with enough force to strip leaves from ancient pines and send loose stones tumbling down the cliffs. Thunder rolled through the valley like the roar of a giant wolf, echoing from peak to peak until the entire forest seemed to tremble beneath the storm. Alpha King Kael Ashbourne climbed the narrow path toward the hidden royal den with 12 exhausted warriors at his back. Their armor was scarred from months of war. Their cloaks hung heavy with rain. The scent of blood, smoke, and wet earth clung to every one of them. Kael never slowed. Every step brought him closer to the only place that mattered: his pups. For 6 endless months he had fought to keep enemy packs away from his borders. Every battle had been won, yet not a single victory had eased the ache that settled in his chest whenever he thought of the 3 little wolves waiting for him, or hoping they still were. The storm had swallowed the mountain path, and even his guards struggled to keep their footing. "The cave should be just ahead, Your Majesty," one warrior called through the wind. Kael gave only a silent nod. The hidden den had protected generations of royal heirs. Few outside the royal bloodline even knew it existed. It was guarded by ancient stone walls, concealed trails, and loyal sentries. Yet something felt wrong. Far too quiet. No wolf calls. No guards answering the signal. Only the howl of the storm. Kael's sharp silver eyes narrowed. His wolf stirred uneasily beneath his skin. Danger. The instinct came without reason, tightening every muscle in his body. He lifted one hand. His warriors stopped immediately. No one spoke. Even the horses seemed unwilling to breathe. The Alpha King slowly stepped toward the stone entrance. The heavy wooden gate stood slightly open, just enough for cold wind to slip inside. That had never happened before. His fingers tightened around the hilt of his sword. Someone had entered, or someone had left. Either possibility chilled him more than the rain. With silent hand signals, he ordered 4 warriors to circle the outside while the rest prepared to follow him. The torch beside the entrance had long since burned out. Water dripped steadily from the rocky ceiling. Kael crossed the threshold. His boots echoed softly against smooth stone. The familiar scent of cedarwood usually welcomed him home. Tonight another scent floated through the air. Wild herbs, fresh bread, lavender. His brows pulled together. Someone had cooked here. Someone had cleaned. The smell did not belong to soldiers, nor servants, nor anyone from his household. His heartbeat slowed instead of quickening. That was somehow more unsettling. The entrance chamber showed no signs of struggle. The blankets had been folded neatly. Clay bowls rested beside the hearth. Fresh firewood had been stacked carefully. The fire itself still glowed with quiet orange embers, spreading gentle warmth through the cave despite the freezing rain outside. One of his warriors whispered behind him, "There should have been dust after months." "There isn't." Kael raised 2 fingers. Silence. His wolf senses reached farther. Another heartbeat. Mo. 4. 5. 3 were small. Children. His pups. Another heartbeat. Steady. Low. Female. Leaping. He followed the sound deeper into the den. Every instinct screamed that an intruder should already have attacked. Yet only silence answered him. He stepped into the family chamber. His breath caught. Time seemed to stop. His sword remained half drawn, forgotten in his hand. Across the room, beneath the warm glow of the fire, lay a sight no warrior could have imagined. A young woman slept against the stone wall. Her head rested awkwardly as though exhaustion had claimed her before she could find comfort. Long dark hair spilled over her shoulders in tangled waves. Rain-dried curls framed a face pale from fatigue. Small scratches covered her arms. Faint bruises marked her wrists. Her clothes were torn by branches and travel, stitched together in places with rough thread. She looked as though the forest itself had tried to keep her. Yet she slept peacefully. Not alone. Prince Rowan rested against her right shoulder, one arm wrapped around her as if afraid she might disappear. Princess Lyra had curled against her side, her tiny hand clutching the edge of the stranger's sleeve. Little Finn lay sprawled across the woman's chest, one tiny fist tangled firmly in her hair while soft breaths rose and fell in perfect rhythm with hers. None of the children looked frightened. None looked hungry. Their faces held the calm peace Kael had not seen since their mother's death. Nearby sat 3 clean wooden bowls, still smelling faintly of warm stew. Fresh berries rested inside a woven basket. Dry blankets covered the children. Their muddy boots had been cleaned and placed neatly beside the wall. Someone had cared for them. Patiently. Lovingly. Kael felt something unfamiliar twist inside his chest. Confusion. Disbelief. His guards entered quietly behind him. One sucked in a sharp breath. Another instinctively reached for his weapon. "Who is she?" someone whispered. "No idea. Should we?" Kael silenced them with a glance. No one moved. Even asleep, the young woman looked utterly exhausted. Dark circles rested beneath closed eyes. One hand remained protectively around Finn's small back even in sleep. It was not the posture of someone pretending. It was instinct. The instinct of someone who had spent hours making sure frightened children felt safe enough to sleep. Kael studied every detail. No jewelry. No royal colors. No visible weapon. Only dirt beneath her fingernails. Healing herbs tucked into a cloth pouch beside her. Fresh bandages folded carefully nearby. His gaze drifted to Rowan. His eldest son trusted almost no one. Not after losing his mother. Not after months spent hiding from enemies while his father fought a kingdom's war. Yet Rowan slept without fear. His guard completely lowered. Kael had not seen that in a very long time. The Alpha King's jaw tightened. Nothing about this made sense. How had she found the hidden den? How had she entered without alerting anyone? Why had his pups accepted her? Questions circled through his mind like wolves hunting in darkness. Oh! He could not ignore what lay before him. His children were alive, fed, warm, because of her. Slowly, carefully, Kael stepped closer. The fire cracked softly. Outside, thunder faded into the distance. Only the gentle breathing of sleeping children filled the cave. He finally drew his sword completely free. The polished steel reflected the dancing firelight. Not because he wished to harm her. Because a king could never lower his guard before someone whose name he did not know. He stopped only a few feet away. The tip of his blade rested low against the stone floor. One more step. One question. One movement would decide everything. Before he could speak, Finn stirred. The little boy rubbed sleepy eyes and lifted his head from the stranger's chest. For one brief heartbeat, Kael expected the child to cry out with joy, to leap into his father's arms after months apart. Is it? Finn looked at the sword, then at the sleeping woman, his tiny face filled with alarm. He wrapped both little arms tightly around her neck. "No!" he whispered. "Don't hurt her." Kael froze. Kael froze. Finn's frightened whisper echoed through the silent chamber with more force than any battle cry. The little boy tightened his arms around the sleeping woman's neck until his tiny knuckles turned white. His lower lip trembled as he looked straight at the sword in his father's hand instead of the father he had waited months to see. "Please," Finn whispered again, his voice barely louder than the crackling fire. "Don't scare her." For a heartbeat, no one moved. The Alpha King's grip loosened around the hilt. He had faced enemy alphas twice his size. He had stood before armies that wanted his kingdom erased from the map. None of those moments had shaken him like the fear in his youngest son's eyes. Kael slowly lowered the blade until its tip rested harmlessly against the stone floor. The faint ring of steel against rock broke the silence. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said quietly. His voice carried none of the command that usually made warriors bow their heads. It held only the careful patience of a father trying not to frighten his child. Finn blinked. His small shoulders relaxed, but only a little. He looked down at the sleeping woman before gently placing one tiny hand against her cheek. "Wake up," he whispered. "Please wake up." The woman did not move. Exhaustion had claimed her too deeply. Kael noticed the faint rise and fall of her breathing. It was slow, uneven, as though every breath required effort. She had not truly rested in days. Perhaps weeks. Prince Rowan stirred next. The eldest pup opened cautious gray eyes that mirrored his father's. For a brief second confusion crossed his face. Then he saw Kael standing only a few steps away. His breath caught. "Father!" The word escaped in little more than a whisper. Kael felt something tighten painfully inside his chest. Rowan quickly untangled himself from the sleeping stranger and stood, though his movements remained careful, almost protective. Instead of rushing into his father's embrace, he instinctively stepped between Kael and the woman. Not aggressively, protectively. It was an action no child made without reason. Kael studied his son's posture. Rowan's chin lifted with quiet determination despite the exhaustion beneath his eyes. "She didn't do anything wrong," Rowan said before Kael could ask a single question. His voice remained steady. "She saved us." Those 4 words settled heavily inside the cave. Behind Kael, several warriors exchanged uncertain glances. An intruder who had saved the royal heirs. Nothing about this fit the instincts of experienced soldiers. Princess Lyra slowly opened her eyes as voices drifted through the room. For a moment she simply blinked at the firelight. Then she saw her father. A smile spread across her tired little face. "Papa!" She hurried toward him, wrapping both arms around his waist before tears quietly filled her eyes. Kael immediately knelt, pulling her close. The scent of pine and smoke clung to her hair. She was warm, healthy, alive. He closed his eyes for one brief moment. Every nightmare he had carried through months of war had begun with returning too late. Now she was here. His large hand gently rested against the back of her head. "I missed you," Lyra whispered. "I missed you too." The words nearly broke beneath the weight of months apart. For several heartbeats neither of them spoke. Only when Lyra pulled back did Kael notice something unusual. The small scratches that had covered her hands before he left had healed. Her cheeks held healthy color again. She looked stronger than when he had departed. Someone had cared for her with remarkable patience. His gaze returned to the stranger. Still asleep. Still unmoving. Finn refused to leave her side. Rowan remained standing beside her like a silent guardian. Kael slowly rose. "What happened here?" he asked. Neither accusation nor anger touched his voice. Only quiet certainty. Rowan answered first. "We thought no one was coming." Kael's jaw tightened. "The storm got worse every day," Rowan continued. "Food became harder to find." His young voice remained calm, though sadness hid beneath every sentence. "Then she found us." Kael listened without interrupting. "She didn't know who we were. She only asked if we were hungry." Finn nodded eagerly. "She made soup. And bread," Lyra added. "And she fixed the roof." Rowan glanced toward the entrance where freshly repaired beams supported part of the cave ceiling. "She cleaned everything." "We tried helping," Lyra admitted softly. "But she told us children should sleep." The warriors looked around more carefully now. Only then did they notice the countless small signs of quiet work. Fresh water stored in clean clay jars. bundles of drying herbs hanging neatly above the hearth, animal hides carefully mended with rough stitching, broken shelves repaired, wood chopped and stacked. Every task spoke of someone who had expected nothing in return. No treasure had been stolen, no secret maps searched, no royal belongings disturbed. Only care, simple, patient, almost impossible to understand. One guard leaned closer to Kael. "Your Majesty." His voice stayed low enough that the children could not hear. This could all be an act. Kael did not answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the woman. If deception existed here, it was unlike anything he had ever witnessed. No spy would willingly exhaust herself nursing frightened children. No assassin would repair furniture before striking. No enemy would sleep so deeply while surrounded by soldiers. Oh, he could not ignore the possibility. His kingdom depended on caution. His children depended on wisdom. The Alpha King walked slowly around the room. Nothing escaped his attention. Near the fire sat a small woven basket filled with freshly gathered mountain herbs. Beside it rested strips of clean cloth stained with dried medicine. One carried the faint scent of wolfbane, not enough to harm, but enough to treat infected wounds when carefully prepared. Whoever she was, she understood healing. Very well. Kael finally stopped beside the sleeping woman. For the first time he truly studied her face instead of the situation surrounding her. She looked young, perhaps only a few years older than many palace attendants. Yet hardship had left quiet marks beneath her eyes. Even in sleep, faint lines of worry remained between her brows. A small cut rested near her temple. Someone had cleaned it carefully. Probably herself. Her hands caught his attention next. Not noble hands. Not soft. Tiny scars crossed her palms. Fresh scratches mixed with older ones. Hands accustomed to gathering wood, lighting fires, preparing food, surviving. Yet despite every hardship, one hand remained gently curved around Finn as though protecting him even in dreams. Kael found himself lowering his voice without thinking. She never tried to leave. Rowan shook his head. No. Why? The boy hesitated, then answered honestly. Because she said no child should wake up alone. Silence settled over the cave once again. Even the warriors struggled to hide the emotion crossing their faces. Kael looked away. Those simple words struck deeper than they should have. His own mate had once said almost the same thing. For an instant old memories flashed before him. Warm laughter beside another fire, tiny newborn paws wrapped in careful hands, promises spoken beneath moonlight. The memory disappeared as quickly as it came. He forced it away. The past changed nothing. The present demanded answers. He straightened once more. No matter how kind this stranger appeared, she had entered the most protected place in the kingdom. That alone required explanation. Kael looked toward his waiting guards. No one draws another weapon. The command echoed quietly through the chamber. Several warriors looked surprised. But remain alert. Every soldier nodded. Then Kael turned back toward the sleeping woman. Outside, the storm had finally begun to fade. Soft morning light slipped through cracks in the stone, painting pale silver across the floor. It reached the woman's face. Her eyelashes fluttered. A faint breath escaped her lips. Slowly, very slowly, she began to wake. The first thing Elara felt was warmth. Not the biting cold that had followed her through endless nights beneath rain-soaked trees. Not the sharp sting of mountain winds that slipped through torn clothes and settled deep inside her bones. This warmth was steady, real. It came from the dying fire beside her and from the small body curled against her shoulder. She smiled without opening her eyes. "Finn," she murmured softly. The little boy always managed to find his way back to her, no matter where he fell asleep. Then another scent reached her. Iron, leather, wet wolf fur, and something else. Power. Her smile faded. Her eyes opened. The cave looked different somehow. The fire still burned, Rowan and Lyra were nearby, but the room no longer felt quiet. Felt. Watch. Her gaze lifted. A tall man stood only a few steps away. Broad shoulders covered in dark battle armor. Rainwater still dripped from his heavy cloak. A sword rested at his side, though its point now touched the stone instead of her heart. His silver-gray eyes never left hers. Cold, careful, powerful. She did not need anyone to tell her who he was. Every instinct inside her recognized the authority that surrounded him like an invisible storm. The Alpha King. For one heartbeat neither of them moved. The fire cracked softly between them. Finn noticed she was awake and immediately hugged her arm. "You're awake," he whispered with relief. Only then did Elara remember where she was. The hidden den. The children. The storm. Everything came rushing back. She carefully sat up, trying not to disturb Finn, but pain immediately pulled at the scratches along her ribs. She hid the wince before anyone noticed. Her eyes returned to the Alpha King. He looked exactly like the stories wandering traders whispered around campfires. A king who never smiled after losing his mate. A warrior who defeated enemy alphas without mercy. A father who would burn kingdoms to protect his children. Yet standing before her now, his expression was not cruel. It was unreadable, like a man trying to solve a puzzle that refused to make sense. Elara slowly lowered her eyes. "I did not mean to trespass," she said quietly. Her voice sounded rough from exhaustion. "I only wanted the children to survive." Silence followed. Kael watched her carefully. Not a single movement escaped his attention. She did not reach for a hidden weapon. She did not try to run. She did not beg. She simply sat there, keeping one protective arm around Finn while waiting for whatever judgment would come. It was unusual. Most intruders either lied immediately or attacked. She did neither. "You entered a place that almost no one can find," Kael finally said. His voice remained calm, but authority filled every word. "How?" Elara looked toward the cave entrance. "The storm." Kael waited. She took a slow breath before continuing. "I was running." "From whom?" "Hunters." The single word hung heavily in the air. She continued before anyone could interrupt. "They followed me through the forest for 3 days. I climbed higher into the mountains hoping they would lose my trail." Her fingers unconsciously tightened around the edge of her worn cloak. "I found the cave by accident." Kael's sharp gaze never softened. "And the guards?" She frowned. There were no guards. Several warriors exchanged uneasy looks. The Alpha King's expression remained unchanged, but his thoughts darkened. No guards. That was impossible. The royal sentries had been stationed here before he marched to war. Either they had abandoned their posts, or something far worse had happened. He buried the thought for later. "What happened after you entered?" he asked. Elara looked down at the children. "I heard crying." Finn rested his head against her shoulder again as though proving her words. "I followed the sound." Her voice grew even quieter. "They were hungry." No one spoke. "They tried to be brave," she continued. "Rowan wouldn't let Lyra cry." The eldest pup lowered his head slightly. Finn kept asking when his father would come home. Kael's chest tightened. "He asked every night." Elara's eyes briefly met Kael's before dropping again. "I could not leave them." The honesty in her voice filled the cave more completely than any dramatic speech could have. She described no heroic rescue. She claimed no special purpose. Only a simple choice. Children were alone, so she stayed. Kael folded his arms across his chest. "You expect me to believe you risked your own life for 3 strangers?" Before Elara could answer, Rowan stepped forward. "She did." His voice carried unexpected firmness. Kael looked at his son. "Every day," Rowan continued. "She gave us food before eating herself. She stayed awake when Finn had nightmares. She repaired the roof during the storm." Lyra nodded eagerly. "When I got scared," she sang. The little princess smiled faintly. "I don't know the song." but it made the thunder sound far away. Kael's eyes shifted back toward Elara. She looked embarrassed rather than proud. "I only did what anyone should do." "No," Kael replied quietly. "Not everyone would." That answer surprised even him. The words escaped before he could stop them. Elara looked up, clearly caught off guard. For the first time since waking, their eyes met without fear. Only curiosity. Only questions. Then the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from deeper within the mountain passage. Several royal attendants and members of the castle household, alerted by the king's return, entered the den. They stopped immediately. Every pair of eyes landed on Elara, stranger, sitting beside the royal heirs. One attendant gasped. Another whispered nervously. Within moments the silence filled with uneasy voices. Who is she? How did she get inside? She could be a spy. No ordinary woman finds the royal den. The whispers spread like wildfire. Elara instinctively lowered her head again. She had heard those voices before. Suspicion, fear, judgment. They always came before violence. Finn noticed her expression change. Without hesitation, he climbed fully into her lap and wrapped both arms around her waist. His small action silenced the room more effectively than any royal command. The youngest prince had chosen exactly where he felt safest. And it was not beside the soldiers. Not beside the attendants. Not even beside the Alpha King. It was beside the mysterious woman everyone else feared. Kael watched the scene in complete silence. His warriors watched him, waiting for the order that would decide the stranger's fate. No one breathed. No one dared speak first. The Alpha King's decision would determine whether the unknown woman was treated as a guest or as a prisoner. The cave remained silent. Every eye stayed fixed on Alpha King Kael. His decision would shape the fate of the mysterious woman before another word was spoken. The fire crackled softly between them, sending golden light across the stone walls. Outside, the storm had finally begun to fade, but inside the den another storm was quietly gathering. Lord Darius Blackthorn stepped through the entrance with measured confidence. Unlike the weary soldiers who had marched home through rain and mud, his dark robes were clean beneath a heavy traveling cloak. His sharp eyes swept across the chamber before settling on Elara, only for the briefest instant. Then his expression hardened into one of controlled concern. "Your Majesty," he said with a respectful bow. "Word reached us that an unknown woman was found inside the royal den." His gaze drifted deliberately toward the children gathered around Elara. "This is far more dangerous than anyone realizes." Elara lowered her eyes. She could feel his attention lingering on her longer than necessary. Something about the man's calm smile unsettled her far more than the soldiers' drawn swords had. Kael remained still. "You arrived quickly. I came because the safety of the royal heirs comes before everything." The words sounded loyal, almost convincing. Darius slowly circled the room, studying every repaired shelf, every bundle of herbs, every cleaned blanket. "The den has clearly been occupied." He stopped a few steps from Elara. "We do not know her name. We do not know her family. We do not know which kingdom she serves." His voice stayed calm. "But we do know she entered the most protected place in our kingdom without permission." Several attendants quietly nodded. Fear spread faster than reason. Darius continued. "A skilled spy does not arrive wearing royal colors. A trained assassin does not announce herself. They earn trust first." The words settled heavily over the chamber. Kael's silver eyes shifted toward Elara. She remained seated beside Finn, her hands folded quietly in her lap. She did not interrupt. She did not argue. She simply listened. It was Rowan who finally spoke. "She isn't lying." Every head turned toward the eldest prince. Rowan stepped forward despite being barely tall enough to reach his father's shoulder. "If she wanted to hurt us." He glanced back at Elara. "She had many chances." No one answered. There were nights father wasn't here. There were no soldiers. No guards. Only us. His young voice carried surprising certainty. If she wanted us dead, we would already be dead. The cave fell silent again. Kael looked carefully at his son. Rowan rarely defended anyone. Since losing his mother, the boy had learned to hide behind caution instead of hope. Yet today he stood without hesitation. Lyra hurried beside her brother. She told stories when we couldn't sleep. And she smiled even when she looked tired. The little princess gently reached for Elara's hand. I wasn't scared anymore. Finn nodded enthusiastically. She makes the best soup. The innocent comment drew faint smiles from two older guards before they quickly hid them. Even Kael felt the corner of his mouth threaten to move. Only for an instant. Darius noticed. His expression remained respectful, but inside his thoughts sharpened. The children were becoming attached. That made the woman far more dangerous. He could not allow emotional bonds to cloud the king's judgment. Children are trusting by nature, Darius said smoothly. They cannot always recognize deception. Kael finally looked at him. What do you suggest? The advisor answered without hesitation. Until her identity is confirmed, she should remain under guard, separated from the royal heirs. The words struck the children like a physical blow. No. Finn immediately wrapped both arms around Elara. You can't take her. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Please. Even Rowan's calm expression cracked. Kael watched each of them carefully. None of their fear looked forced. None of it seemed temporary. In only a handful of days, this stranger had become the safest place in their world. That alone demanded an explanation. Elara gently stroked Finn's hair. It's all right. Her voice remained soft. If His Majesty believes I should leave, I'll go. She looked directly at Kael. I will not fight your decision. The words carried quiet dignity. No pleading. No anger. Only acceptance. Kael studied her face. Most guilty people fought desperately for freedom. This woman seemed concerned only for the children she would leave behind. His instincts refused to fit her into the picture Darius was painting. Finally the Alpha King spoke. No. The single word echoed through the chamber. Darius frowned almost imperceptibly. Kael continued. She entered our lands without permission. That cannot be ignored. Elara lowered her head. But neither can what I see before me. His gaze moved toward his children. My heirs are alive. They are healthy. They trust her. No judgment will be made before the truth is known. The attendants exchanged uncertain glances. Darius carefully hid his disappointment. You are showing mercy, Your Majesty. I am showing caution, Kael corrected. There is a difference. He turned toward Elara once more. You will come to the castle. You will remain under my protection. The room grew still. You are not free to leave. But neither are you a prisoner. The unusual decision surprised nearly everyone present. Even Elara looked confused. I don't understand. You will answer my questions. You will be treated fairly. If your story is true. His voice remained calm. The truth will protect you. For the first time in many days, Elara felt something she had almost forgotten. Oh, fragile, but real. She bowed her head. You have my word. Kael gave a slight nod before looking toward his warriors. Prepare the horses. Then, after a brief pause, he added quietly. And bring blankets. His eyes rested for only a second on the scratches covering Elara's arms. The gesture was small, almost unnoticed by everyone else. But Elara noticed. So did the three pups. Without another word, Finn slipped his tiny hand into hers, unwilling to let go as they prepared to leave the only shelter that had brought them together. The royal castle had never felt so unfamiliar. Elara stood beneath towering stone walls covered with ancient carvings of wolves, kings, and forgotten battles. The mountain fortress rose above the clouds, its dark towers disappearing into the gray morning sky. For most people, entering this place would have been a dream. For Elara, it felt like standing inside a beautiful cage. The gates had opened for her. But every guard watching from the walls reminded her that she had not arrived as a guest. Not completely. She walked beside Alpha King Kael through the castle courtyard while snow fell softly around them. The storm had passed, leaving the world covered in silver silence. The warriors moved around them with careful discipline. The servants lowered their heads as the king passed. Everyone knew. The stranger from the den had arrived. Whispers followed her footsteps. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why did the royal pups trust her? Elara kept her eyes lowered. She had learned long ago that attention was dangerous, especially the attention of powerful people. Yet every few steps, she felt a small hand holding hers. Finn, the youngest prince, refused to walk anywhere without her. Even now, dressed in clean royal clothing, he stayed close to her side. Rowan walked ahead with quiet seriousness, watching the castle halls as if expecting danger around every corner. Lyra walked between them, occasionally looking at Elara with a gentle smile. The children were not afraid. That was the strangest part. Everyone else looked at Elara like she was a mystery waiting to be solved. The pups looked at her like she belonged. Kael noticed. He noticed everything. The Alpha King walked several steps ahead, but his attention remained on the woman behind him. He had spent his entire life reading people. Warriors, nobles, enemies, ways, fear, ambition. But Elara confused him. She carried herself like someone who had suffered. Yet she showed kindness without expecting anything. She had entered his world with nothing. No army, no title, no protection. Still, his children trusted her more than they trusted most members of his own court. That fact bothered him. And it fascinated him. They reached the royal chambers before noon. A group of servants waited nearby, ready to prepare rooms and clothing. Darius stood among them. His expression was polite. Too polite. Your Majesty, he said, bowing. The council has been informed of the situation. Kael stopped. Already? Darius calmly nodded. The arrival of an unknown woman inside the royal den is not a small matter. Elara felt the weight of those words. Unknown woman. Not healer. Not survivor. Not the person who kept 3 children alive. Threat. That was how many already saw her. Kael's eyes narrowed slightly. The council will hear my decision when I am ready to speak. Of course. Darius bowed again. But his gaze moved briefly toward Elara. Studying. Measuring. Remembering. She noticed. And something inside her warned her to be careful. Later that evening, Elara sat alone in the guest chamber prepared for her. The room was larger than any place she had ever slept. Soft bed, clean clothes, a warm fireplace, fresh water, everything she needed. Yet comfort felt strange, almost frightening. She sat near the window, watching snow fall over the mountains. For years, survival had been simple. Run, hide, move before anyone discovered her. Never stay long enough for someone to ask questions. Now she was surrounded by people who wanted answers. And the worst part was, she did not have all of them herself. Her fingers moved slowly over the small scar near her shoulder. A memory tried to rise. A burning building. A woman's voice. A symbol carved into silver. Then nothing. Darkness. Rain. She quickly pulled her hand away. Some memories were locked for a reason. A quiet knock interrupted her thoughts. He turned. The door opened slightly. Lyra peeked inside. Can I come in? Elara smiled softly. Of course. The little princess entered carrying a small blanket. You looked cold. Elara looked at the blanket. Then at the child. You brought this for me. Lyra nodded. Finn said you always give things away. A small smile touched Elara's face. He noticed that. He notices everything. Lyra climbed onto the chair beside her. After a moment of silence, she whispered, "I dreamed about you." Elara looked at her. "What did you dream?" The princess stared toward the snowy window. There was a moon above a forest. Her voice became distant, and a woman standing beneath it. Elara felt something strange move through her chest. "What woman?" Lyra looked back at her. "You." The room became suddenly colder. Elara forced a small smile. "Dreams can be confusing." Lyra shook her head. "Not this one." Before Elara could answer, the door opened again. Kael stood there. For a moment, his eyes moved between them, then to the blanket in Lyra's hands. The sight was strangely peaceful, something he had not felt inside these walls for a long time. "My daughter should be sleeping." Lyra immediately looked guilty. "But I wanted to make sure she wasn't alone." Kael looked at Elara. The words were simple, but they carried more meaning than anyone realized. Elara was used to being alone. Kael understood that feeling too well. After Lyra left, silence remained. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. Kael stepped farther into the room. "You should rest." Elara nodded. "I will." His gaze moved briefly to the scratches on her arms. "The healer will examine your injuries." "I'm fine." That wasn't a question. His tone was firm, but not cruel. Elara looked at him carefully. There was something different beneath the Alpha King's authority. Concern. Hidden. Controlled. Like he was afraid to show it. "I don't want to cause trouble here." Kael's expression changed slightly. "You already have." The words were direct. Elara lowered her eyes. Then he continued. "But not all trouble is dangerous." She looked back at him. For a brief moment neither spoke. Two people carrying wounds they refused to reveal. Two people who did not trust easily. Two people who had no idea how much their lives were about to change. Kael turned toward the door. Before leaving he paused. "One more thing." Elara waited. "My children have not slept peacefully since their mother died." Her expression softened. Kael's voice became quieter. "Last night was the first time." The words stayed between them. Then he left. Elara remained by the window long after the door closed. She looked down at the castle below. At the kingdom she never wanted to enter. At the people who feared her. At the Alpha King who did not know whether to trust her. And somewhere deep inside her memory, something ancient stirred. Symbol. Voice. Forgotten promise. But before she could grasp it, a sudden knock echoed through the chamber. The royal healer had arrived. And the moment she saw Elara's hidden mark, everything changed. The door opened slowly. An elderly woman entered carrying a wooden case filled with herbs, small glass bottles, and carefully folded cloth. She was not dressed like a servant. The silver markings embroidered along her robe identified her immediately. Royal healer. For decades, she had treated the injuries of warriors, nobles, and even members of the royal family. Her name was not spoken often outside the castle, but everyone respected her, because she had seen things others had not. The healer placed the wooden case on the table and looked toward Elara. At first, her expression was calm, professional. Then her eyes moved to the scratches along Elara's arms. Concern appeared. "You have been surviving alone for a long time." Elara remained quiet. The healer noticed. People who had suffered often carried silence like armor. "May I?" She gestured toward Elara's arm. After a brief hesitation, Elara nodded. The healer gently examined the wounds. No unnecessary questions. No judgment. Only careful attention. "You treated these yourself." It was not a question. Elara looked away. "I had to." The healer's hands slowed. There was something about that answer that carried more history than Elara wanted to reveal. "You are lucky." Elara gave a faint smile. "I don't usually feel lucky." The healer looked at her. Not with pity. With understanding. Sometimes surviving is its own kind of blessing. For a moment, Elara almost answered. almost told her everything. About the nightmares. About the missing pieces of her childhood. About the strange feeling that she had spent years running from something she could not remember. But fear closed her throat. Secrets had kept her alive. Secrets were safer. The healer continued cleaning the wounds. Until she reached the mark near Elara's shoulder. A mark Elara always kept hidden. The healer froze. Completely. The cloth slipped slightly from her fingers. Elara noticed immediately. "What is it?" The older woman did not answer. Her eyes remained fixed on the symbol. A small crescent shape surrounded by ancient lines. A symbol Elara had carried for as long as she could remember. The healer stepped back. "No." The word escaped like a breath. Elara's heartbeat changed. "You know this." The healer did not respond. She simply stared. The room suddenly felt smaller. The fire burned lower. Outside, wind moved through the castle towers. "What is it?" Elara asked again. This time her voice carried more urgency. The healer finally looked at her. And for the first time since entering the room, she looked afraid. "Where did you get this?" Elara frowned. "I don't know." The answer seemed impossible. But it was the truth. "I have had it since I was a child." The healer moved closer again. Carefully. As if approaching something sacred. "Who gave it to you?" "I don't remember." A painful silence followed. The healer's expression changed. Not confusion. Recognition. That frightened Elara more. "Tell me." The healer looked toward the closed door. Then back at Elara. "Some things are not meant to be forgotten." The words sent a chill through the room. Elara felt anger rising. Not because of the healer. Because once again someone seemed to know something about her that she did not. "Everyone keeps looking at me like I am a secret they already understand." Her voice became quieter. "But I don't even know who I am." The healer softened. For a moment, the old woman looked less like a royal servant and more like someone who understood the pain of losing pieces of yourself. Then she reached toward Elara's shoulder again. The symbol was ancient. Older than the current royal family. Older than many kingdoms. Her fingers trembled slightly. "This cannot be possible." "What?" The healer looked directly into her eyes. This mark belonged to a bloodline that was believed to have vanished. Elara stopped breathing for a moment. "What bloodline?" The healer hesitated. 1,000 thoughts crossed her face. Then footsteps sounded outside. The healer immediately stepped away. The door opened. Kael stood there. His expression changed when he saw the tension inside the room. "What happened?" Neither woman answered immediately. The healer quickly closed the wooden case. "Nothing, Your Majesty." Kael's eyes narrowed. He knew when someone was hiding something. Years of ruling had taught him that. "Nothing." The healer lowered her head. "Her wounds are not dangerous." Kael looked toward Elara, then back to the healer. Something had changed. He could feel it, but he did not know what. "Leave us." The healer obeyed. Before walking out, she gave Elara one final look. A look filled with fear. And something that felt almost like hope. When the door closed, Kael remained silent. Elara sat near the fire, her thoughts racing. She knew the Alpha King had noticed. She knew he would ask. And she knew she could not answer. Not because she wanted to hide everything. Because she had spent years trying to understand the missing pieces of herself. How could she explain a truth she did not know? Kael finally spoke. What did she see? Elara looked at him. "I don't know." He studied her carefully. The old version of Kael might have assumed she was lying. The warrior who had spent years surviving betrayal would have searched for deception. But something stopped him. Her eyes did not hold the fear of someone hiding a crime. They held the fear of someone discovering they had lost their own past. "I believe you don't know," he said quietly. Elara looked surprised. It was the first time someone had said that. Kael walked toward the window. For a moment the two stood in silence. The distance between them was still there. But something had shifted. a small crack in the wall they had both built. "You need rest," Kael said. Elara nodded. "Thank you." He paused. "For what?" "For believing me." The answer caught him off guard. 'Cause he realized something. She was not asking for forgiveness. She was grateful for something most people in his kingdom took for granted. Being heard. Kael looked away. "You have not given me a reason not to." Then he left. But outside the chamber, the Alpha King did not walk away immediately. He stood in the hallway, thinking. The healer's reaction. The mark. The impossible fear in her eyes. Something about Elara was connected to a history buried beneath the kingdom itself. And somewhere inside the castle, someone else had noticed too. A shadow moved silently through the corridor. A figure who had been watching since Elara arrived. A figure who now carried news that would change everything. The stranger from the den was not simply a lost traveler. She was something much more dangerous. Something the kingdom had believed was gone forever. The castle slept beneath a blanket of darkness. Snow covered the mountain peaks surrounding the kingdom, reflecting pale moonlight across the stone walls. The wind moved quietly through the towers, carrying the distant sounds of guards changing positions along the battlements. From the outside, everything appeared peaceful. But inside the royal fortress, peace had become something fragile, something that could break with a single whisper. Elara lay awake. The guest chamber was warm. The bed was softer than anything she had known in years. A fire still burned beside the wall, filling the room with a gentle orange glow. Yet sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, memories appeared. A burning village. A woman's voice calling her name. A silver symbol glowing beneath moonlight. Then darkness. Always darkness. She pressed her fingers against her temple, trying to force the images away. They were not complete memories. Only pieces. Broken pieces of a life she could not reach. The healer's reaction had disturbed her more than she wanted to admit. That fear in the old woman's eyes. The way she looked at the mark on Elara's skin as if she had seen a ghost return from the dead. Elara slowly pulled the blanket closer. For most of her life, she had believed her past was simply lost. Now she wondered if someone had taken it from her. A soft sound interrupted her thoughts. Small creak. Not from the fire. Not from the wind. Her eyes opened immediately. The years of surviving alone had taught her one thing. Silence could lie. She sat still. Listening. Nothing. Only the faint sound of snow falling outside. She almost relaxed. Almost. Then her instincts screamed. Someone was inside. Elara moved without thinking. She rolled away from the bed just as a dark figure appeared near the doorway. A blade cut through the air where her body had been moments before. The attacker moved silently. Too silently. No warning. No hesitation. Only purpose. Elara hit the stone floor and immediately pushed herself back. Her heart raced. Not from fear. From recognition. This was not a robbery. Not an accident. Someone had come here to kill her. The assassin advanced. A dark cloak covered every feature except cold, focused eyes. Elara searched the room quickly. No weapon. No guards. No escape. Only herself. The attacker struck again. This time Elara reacted. Her hand caught the assassin's wrist before the blade reached her chest. The movement surprised both of them. She surprised herself most. Her body moved before her mind could understand. Whisk. Redirect. The assassin stumbled backward. For one impossible moment, Elara saw her own hands. The way they moved. The way her feet shifted. The way her body remembered something her mind had forgotten. Training. Not survival. Training. The realization froze her. She had never learned to fight. Least, she did not remember learning. The assassin recovered quickly and attacked again. Elara grabbed the nearest object, a metal candle holder, and blocked the strike. The impact sent pain through her arm. But she held on. The attacker hesitated. A trained killer recognizing another trained fighter. "You don't know who you are, do you?" The voice was low. Cold. The words struck harder than the blade. Elara's eyes narrowed. What did you say? The assassin did not answer. Instead, they attacked with greater force. Elara moved backward, barely avoiding each strike. Every movement felt impossible, like a memory living inside her muscles. A lesson someone had carved into her bones. She hated that she knew how to do this. Because if she knew how to fight, who had taught her? And why had she forgotten? The assassin drove her toward the wall. The blade lifted. This time there was no space to escape. No time. Then the chamber door exploded open. A powerful force crashed into the room. The assassin was thrown backward. The Alpha King moved like a storm. No hesitation. No wasted movement. His sword flashed beneath the firelight. The assassin barely avoided the first strike. Elara remained frozen for a moment, watching the king she had only seen as controlled and distant become something entirely different. A warrior. Protector. A wolf defending its territory. Kael placed himself between her and the attacker. His voice dropped into a dangerous whisper. Move away from her. The assassin laughed softly. You still don't understand what she is. Kael's eyes hardened. You will not leave this room alive if you touch her again. The assassin attacked. Steel collided with steel. The sound shook the chamber. Elara moved away as Kael fought. She wanted to help. Her instincts demanded it. But something else held her still. For the first time, someone was protecting her. Not because they needed something from her. Not because they feared what she carried. Simply because she was in danger. The thought felt unfamiliar. Almost painful. Kael pushed the assassin back. The attacker's movements became desperate. Then the assassin glanced toward Elara. Not at her face. At the hidden mark beneath her clothing. And suddenly everything changed. The hatred in those eyes disappeared. Replaced by fear. Real fear. You! The assassin whispered. Kael noticed. What? The assassin stepped backward. Almost as if seeing a nightmare standing before them. No! The word escaped quietly. No, it cannot be. Elara felt the cold spread through her body. What are you talking about? The assassin ignored her. Their eyes remained locked on the hidden truth beneath her skin. Then they whispered the words that made the entire room fall silent. The princess was breath. The princess still lives. The fire cracked. The wind outside screamed against the castle walls. And Kael looked at Elara differently for the first time. Not as a stranger. Not as a mystery. But as someone carrying a secret powerful enough to bring an assassin to her door. And before anyone could demand answers, the assassin reached for something hidden beneath the cloak. Kael saw the movement before anyone else did. The assassin's hand disappeared beneath the dark cloak. Every instinct inside the Alpha King awakened at once. Danger. He moved forward. But the assassin was faster. A small blade flashed from beneath the fabric, aimed not at Kael, but at Elara. The world seemed to slow. Elara saw the weapon coming. She knew she should move. Her body knew before her mind did. Step. Turn. A shift of balance. The same forgotten movements that had appeared during the fight returned again. She moved away from the strike. The blade passed through empty air. Kael reached the assassin in the same moment. His hand closed around the attacker's wrist with enough force to make the weapon fall. The assassin tried to pull away. Impossible. Not from an Alpha King. Kael's wolf energy filled the room. The candles flickered. The air itself seemed heavier. You entered my castle. His voice was low. You attacked a woman under my protection. His grip tightened. And you threatened my children by bringing danger to their home. The assassin remained silent. But Elara noticed something. The attacker was no longer looking at Kael. They were looking at her. Not with hatred. With fear. Like her existence alone was impossible. Kael noticed too. Who sent you? No answer. Speak. The assassin smiled faintly. It was not a smile of victory. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret buried for years. The assassin's eyes moved toward Elara. Was never meant to stay buried. Kael's expression darkened. You are not leaving this room until I have every answer. The assassin laughed quietly. You think this is about you, Alpha King? The words carried a strange confidence. It is much bigger than your throne. Before Kael could respond, the assassin suddenly twisted their arm. A hidden movement. Final attempt. Elara recognized it. Not because she had seen it before. Because her body remembered. Kael! The warning escaped her mouth before she could think. The Alpha King reacted instantly. He pulled the assassin forward and away from the hidden weapon. The attack failed. But in that brief moment, the assassin managed to break free. They moved toward the window. Kael followed. The distance between them disappeared in seconds. But the assassin was already prepared. The glass shattered. Cold mountain air rushed into the chamber. Snow blew across the floor. For a heartbeat, the figure stood against the moonlight. Shadow. Mystery. A warning. Then they disappeared into the darkness outside. Kael reached the broken window too late. Below, only endless mountains and falling snow remained. The guards arrived moments later. Weapons drawn. Breathing heavily. Your Majesty. Kael did not answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the darkness. Someone had entered his castle. Someone had bypassed his guards. Someone had reached the woman connected to a forgotten royal secret. And they had escaped. That alone was impossible. Kael finally turned. Seal the castle. The guards immediately bowed. No one enters or leaves without my permission. The order carried through the halls. The kingdom had awakened. Elara remained standing near the center of the room. She was not looking at the broken window. She was looking at her own hands. The hands that had fought. The hands that had moved like they belonged to someone else. Kael noticed. He walked toward her carefully. Not as a king. Not as a warrior. As someone who understood what it felt like to be haunted by unanswered questions. Are you hurt? Elara shook her head. No. Then quieter. I don't understand. Kael remained silent. She looked at him. I have spent years running from people who wanted to find me. Her voice trembled slightly. But I never knew why. The firelight reflected in her eyes. I don't know who they think I am. Kael studied her. For the first time he saw something beneath the mystery. Not a hidden enemy. Not a possible threat. A woman who was just as lost as everyone searching for her. You fought like someone trained by warriors. Elara looked away. I don't remember learning. Those words stayed between them. Because they revealed something both frightening and heartbreaking. Her past was not simply unknown. Parts of it were missing. Kael had spent years believing the past only brought pain. After losing his mate, he had closed every door that led back to those memories. But now he stood before someone whose entire identity was locked away from her. Someone who needed answers. Someone who had protected his children. He lowered his voice. You recognized the assassin's movements. Elara looked surprised. I don't know how. Neither do I. A rare moment of honesty. From the Alpha King. Elara noticed. Kael was not pretending to have every answer. He was searching too. The realization changed something small between them. Not trust. Not yet. But understanding. A knock interrupted the silence. The royal healer entered with several guards behind her. Her face was pale. She had heard. Everyone had. Her eyes immediately found Elara. Then the broken window. Then Kael. What happened? Kael's expression hardened. An assassin came for her. The healer's face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. And that told Kael everything. You know something. The healer looked down. Your Majesty. Do not hide behind silence. The room became tense. The healer swallowed. I feared this day would come. Elara felt her heart tighten. What day? The healer looked at her. At the mark hidden beneath her clothing. At the woman who had no idea why enemies wanted her dead. Then she whispered. The day someone discovered that the impossible was true. Kael stepped closer. What truth? The healer hesitated. The entire room waited. Finally she spoke. Years ago. There was a royal bloodline everyone believed had vanished. Her eyes remained on Elara. The moon crown bloodline. Silence. No one moved. Elara felt the name settle inside her like something ancient waking from sleep. The healer continued. And the symbol you carry was the mark of that bloodline. Kael looked at Elara. The stranger from the den. The woman his pups trusted. The woman who appeared from nowhere. Suddenly she was connected to a history buried beneath kingdoms. A history someone was willing to kill for. Elara whispered. Who am I? No one answered. Because the truth was not ready to be spoken. But far away beyond the castle walls. Someone else had already learned that she was alive. And they would not wait quietly. Morning arrived without peace. The sun rose above the mountain kingdom, but its light did not bring comfort. The castle moved with nervous energy. Guards stood at every entrance. Messengers hurried through the halls. Council members whispered behind closed doors. Everyone knew something had changed during the night. An assassin had entered the royal chambers. And the target was not the Alpha King. Not the heirs. The mysterious woman who had appeared inside the sacred den. Elara Nightbloom. She stood alone near the tall windows of the royal library, staring at the mountains beyond the castle. Snow covered everything. Beautiful. Silent. Unforgiving. She had spent years looking toward the horizon while running from an unknown enemy. Now she stood inside a kingdom that claimed she might be connected to something ancient. A royal bloodline. A lost kingdom. A destiny she never asked for. Her fingers moved slowly over the hidden mark beneath her clothing. The symbol that had changed everything. The healer's words continued repeating inside her mind. The moon crown bloodline. You think this is about you, Alpha King? The words carried a strange confidence. It is much bigger than your throne. Before Kael could respond, the assassins suddenly twisted their arm. A hidden movement. Final attempt. Elara recognized it. Not because she had seen it before. Because her body remembered. Kael! The warning escaped her mouth before she could think. The Alpha King reacted instantly. He pulled the assassin forward and away from the hidden weapon. The attack failed. But in that brief moment, the assassin managed to break free. They moved toward the window. Kael followed. The distance between them disappeared in seconds. But the assassin was already prepared. The glass shattered. Cold mountain air rushed into the chamber. Snow blew across the floor. For a heartbeat, the figure stood against the moonlight. Shadow. Mystery. A warning. Then they disappeared into the darkness outside. Kael reached the broken window too late. Below, only endless mountains and falling snow remained. The guards arrived moments later. Weapons drawn. Breathing heavily. Your Majesty. Kael did not answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the darkness. Someone had entered his castle. Someone had bypassed his guards. Someone had reached the woman connected to a forgotten royal secret. And they had escaped. That alone was impossible. Kael finally turned. Seal the castle. The guards immediately bowed. No one enters or leaves without my permission. The order carried through the halls. The kingdom had awakened. Elara remained standing near the center of the room. She was not looking at the broken window. She was looking at her own hands. The hands that had fought. The hands that had moved like they belonged to someone else. Kael noticed. He walked toward her carefully. Not as a king. Not as a warrior. As someone who understood what it felt like to be haunted by unanswered questions. Are you hurt? Elara shook her head. No. Then quieter. I don't understand. Kael remained silent. She looked at him. I have spent years running from people who wanted to find me. Her voice trembled slightly. But I never knew why. The firelight reflected in her eyes. I don't know who they think I am. Kael studied her. For the first time he saw something beneath the mystery. Not a hidden enemy. Not a possible threat. A woman who was just as lost as everyone searching for her. You fought like someone trained by warriors. Elara looked away. I don't remember learning. Those words stayed between them, because they revealed something both frightening and heartbreaking. Her past was not simply unknown. Parts of it were missing. Kael had spent years believing the past only brought pain. After losing his mate, he had closed every door that led back to those memories. But now he stood before someone whose entire identity was locked away from her. Someone who needed answers. Someone who had protected his children. He lowered his voice. You recognized the assassin's movements. Elara looked surprised. I don't know how. Neither do I. A rare moment of honesty. From the Alpha King. Elara noticed. Kael was not pretending to have every answer. He was searching too. The realization changed something small between them. Not trust. Not yet. But understanding. A knock interrupted the silence. The royal healer entered with several guards behind her. Her face was pale. She had heard. Everyone had. Her eyes immediately found Elara. Then the broken window. Then Kael. What happened? Kael's expression hardened. An assassin came for her. The healer's face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. And that told Kael everything. You know something. The healer looked down. Your Majesty. Do not hide behind silence. The room became tense. The healer swallowed. I feared this day would come. Elara felt her heart tighten. What day? The healer looked at her. At the mark hidden beneath her clothing. At the woman who had no idea why enemies wanted her dead. Then she whispered. The day someone discovered that the impossible was true. Kael stepped closer. What truth? The healer hesitated. The entire room waited. Finally she spoke. Years ago. There was a royal bloodline everyone believed had vanished. Her eyes remained on Elara. The moon-crowned bloodline. Silence. No one moved. Elara felt the name settle inside her like something ancient waking from sleep. The healer continued. And the symbol you carry was the mark of that bloodline. Kael looked at Elara. The stranger from the den. The woman his pups trusted. The woman who appeared from nowhere. Suddenly she was connected to a history buried beneath kingdoms. A history someone was willing to kill for. Elara whispered. Who am I? No one answered. Because the truth was not ready to be spoken. But far away beyond the castle walls. Someone else had already learned that she was alive. And they would not wait quietly. Morning arrived without peace. The sun rose above the mountain kingdom, but its light did not bring comfort. The castle moved with nervous energy. Guards stood at every entrance. Messengers hurried through the halls. Council members whispered behind closed doors. Everyone knew something had changed during the night. An assassin had entered the royal chambers. And the target was not the Alpha King. Not the heirs. The mysterious woman who had appeared inside the sacred den. Elara Nightbloom. She stood alone near the tall windows of the royal library, staring at the mountains beyond the castle. Snow covered everything. Beautiful. Silent. Unforgiving. She had spent years looking toward the horizon while running from an unknown enemy. Now she stood inside a kingdom that claimed she might be connected to something ancient. A royal bloodline. A lost kingdom. A destiny she never asked for. Her fingers moved slowly over the hidden mark beneath her clothing. The symbol that had changed everything. The healer's words continued repeating inside her mind. The moon-crowned bloodline. She did not understand why those words felt familiar. She did not understand why hearing them caused a strange ache in her chest. Like remembering a song she had never heard. A door she had never opened. Footsteps approached behind her. She did not turn. She already knew who it was. Your Majesty. Kael stopped several feet away. You knew I was here. Elara gave a small nod. Kings are not difficult to recognize. A faint silence followed. Not uncomfortable, just careful. Since the night before, something between them had shifted. The distance remained. The questions remained. But now there was something else. A shared uncertainty. Kael looked toward the mountains. The council will meet today. Elara's expression changed slightly. About me. About what happened. She looked down. That usually means about me. Kael did not deny it. Honesty seemed to be the only thing he could offer her. The assassin's words cannot be ignored. Elara's eyes lifted. The princess still lives. The sentence sounded strange when she repeated it. Almost like someone else's life. Kael studied her reaction. You don't remember being royalty? No. The answer came immediately. I don't remember being anything. For a moment the Alpha King said nothing. Then quietly. That must be difficult. Elara looked at him. She expected suspicion. An interrogation. Instead she saw understanding. Hidden. But real. You lost someone too. The words surprised him. Kael's expression changed. My mate. Elara lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. Simple sentence. But it carried weight. Most people offered sympathy because they believed a king expected it. Elara said it because she felt it. Kael looked away. My kingdom survived. His voice became quieter. But sometimes survival does not feel like victory. The honesty surprised them both. The Alpha King rarely spoke about his pain, especially not with strangers. But Elara was not looking at him like a ruler. She was looking at him like a person carrying wounds. Before either could say more, the library doors opened. The royal healer entered carrying several old scrolls. Behind her followed 2 guards carrying ancient records. Kael immediately turned. What did you find? The healer placed the scrolls carefully on the table. Something I hoped I would never need to uncover. Her voice was heavy. Elara stepped closer. The healer opened the oldest scroll. The paper was faded. The writing nearly disappeared with age. But the symbol at the top remained clear. The same crescent mark. The same symbol on Elara's skin. Kael looked at it. Then at Elara. The connection was impossible to ignore. This record belonged to the first Moon Crown rulers, the healer explained. The bloodline that existed before the current kingdoms were divided. She carefully unfolded another page. They were believed to have disappeared after the fall of their kingdom. Elara stared at the ancient writing. Why? The healer hesitated. Because someone wanted them gone. The room became colder. Kael's eyes hardened. Who? We do not know for certain. The healer lowered her gaze. But we know the disappearance changed the entire balance of power. Elara touched the page carefully. The moment her fingers reached the symbol, something happened. Flash. Memory. Not complete. Only a feeling. Warm hands holding hers. A woman's voice whispering. You must survive. Elara pulled her hand away. Her breathing changed. Kael noticed immediately. What did you see? She looked confused. I don't know. But she did. Not completely. Not enough to explain. Yet for the first time in years, something from her past had reached back. The healer stepped closer. The Moon Crown bloodline carried a promise. Kael looked at her. What promise? The healer's expression became serious. That one day, the lost heir would return. A long silence followed. Elara shook her head. No. Everyone looked at her. I cannot be that person. Her voice was not angry. It was afraid. I am not a princess. She looked at her hands. I spent my life running. I have no memories of castles. No memories of crowns. No memories of a family. The pain in her voice was quiet. But everyone heard it. Kael watched her carefully. 'Cause for the first time he understood something. Elara was not hiding her identity. She was searching for it. Before anyone could respond, a horn sounded from outside the castle. Once, three times. An urgent arrival. The guards rushed into the library. Your Majesty. Kael turned. What happened? The guard lowered his head. A message has arrived from the Ashenfang kingdom. The room went still. The healer's face changed. Fear returned. Kael noticed. Read it. The guard unfolded the sealed letter. His voice trembled slightly. From Queen Selene of Ashenfang. He paused, then continued. The lost princess has awakened. Silence. No one moved. The guard looked toward Elara. And she demands that Elara Nightbloom be returned immediately. The ancient scrolls remained open on the table. The symbol of the lost bloodline shining beneath the morning light. And for the first time, the entire kingdom understood. The stranger found in the den was not simply a mystery. She was someone powerful kingdoms had been waiting for. The words remained hanging in the library long after the messenger finished speaking. The lost princess has awakened. No one seemed to know what to say. The fire beside the stone wall continued burning, but the room felt colder than the mountains outside. Elara stared at the sealed message in the guard's hands. A strange feeling moved through her. Not fear alone. Something deeper. Something that felt almost like recognition. She hated that feeling, because it meant a part of her already knew. Kael stepped forward and took the letter. The wax seal carried the symbol of Ashenfang. A black wolf beneath a crescent moon. An enemy kingdom. A kingdom that had not spoken peacefully with his for years. His eyes moved across the words, then hardened. Queen Selene was not asking. She was claiming. And that meant one thing. She believed Elara belonged to her. How did they know she was here? Kael asked. The guard lowered his head. We do not know, Your Majesty. Kael looked toward the healer. She said nothing. But her silence revealed enough. Someone had known. Someone had been watching. Someone had sent an assassin before the message arrived. Darius's earlier warnings suddenly felt different. Not because they were wrong. Because they were incomplete. The danger surrounding Elara was much larger than anyone had understood. Kael folded the letter. Double the guards around the castle. The order came instantly. Nobody approaches her without my permission. The warriors bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. Elara remained silent. She looked toward the ancient scrolls. The symbol. Prophecy. The demand from a queen she had never met. All of it pointed toward a life she did not recognize. A life everyone else seemed certain belonged to her. I should leave. The words surprised everyone. Kael turned immediately. What? Elara looked at him. If my presence puts this kingdom in danger. She glanced toward Rowan, Lyra, and Finn, who had been quietly standing near the doorway listening. If enemies are coming because of me. Her voice lowered. I cannot allow them to suffer because I am here. Kael's expression changed. Not anger. Something closer to disbelief. You think running will protect them? Elara looked down. It protected me. The answer was quiet, honest. And for a moment Kael saw the person beneath the mystery. A woman who had survived by disappearing. A woman who believed leaving was the only way to keep people safe. But this time was different. You are no longer alone. The words came before he could stop them. Elara looked at him. Kael held her gaze. You have 3 children who believe you belong here. The mention of the pups softened her expression. They deserve peace. They deserve the truth. His voice became quieter. And so do you. For several seconds neither moved. The room around them disappeared. No council. No prophecy. No enemy queen. Only 2 people standing between the lives they had lost and the futures they did not understand. Then a small voice interrupted. Are you leaving? Finn stood at the entrance. His eyes were already filled with worry. Elara immediately turned. No. But the hesitation before the answer was enough for him to notice. The little boy walked closer. You promised. Elara knelt. What did I promise? That you wouldn't leave us alone. The words broke something inside her. 'Cause she remembered. The first night in the den. A storm. 3 frightened children hiding in darkness. Finn asking if his father would return. She had promised without thinking. Now she realized promises mattered. Even when they were difficult. I won't leave you, she whispered. Finn wrapped his arms around her. Kael watched quietly. The sight affected him more than he expected. His pups had lost so much. And somehow, this woman who had lost everything herself had given them something he could not. Feeling of safety. Later that day, the council chamber filled with voices. Nobles stood around the long stone table. Some looked frightened. Others looked suspicious. The news had spread throughout the castle. The missing princess was alive. And she was standing inside their walls. Darius stood among them, calm and composed. Your Majesty, one elder council member said, if Queen Selene believes this woman belongs to Shadowfang, we cannot ignore the threat. Another nodded. The kingdoms are already unstable. Her arrival could start a war. Kael sat at the head of the table. His expression revealed nothing. But inside, every instinct fought against the situation. His duty demanded caution. His heart remembered 3 children sleeping peacefully because of Elara. Darius spoke carefully. Perhaps the safest option is to investigate her origins before making any decision. Kael looked at him. Meaning? Darius folded his hands. Meaning we cannot allow emotion to guide the crown. The words sounded reasonable. But Kael heard the hidden message. Do not trust her. Do not protect her. Do not let her change anything. The Alpha King leaned back. I have ruled this kingdom long enough to know the difference between emotion and judgment. Silence followed. No one challenged him. After the meeting ended, Kael returned to the library. Elara was still there, studying the ancient scrolls, trying to find herself in words written hundreds of years before her birth. You should sleep. She looked up. I don't think I can. Kael understood. Too many questions. She gave a small, tired smile. Too many. Then she asked. Do you believe I am her? Kael knew exactly what she meant. The princess. The lost heir. The woman from the prophecy. He looked at the symbol. Then at her. I believe something about you has been hidden for a long time. Not an answer. But an honest one. Elara nodded slowly. I am afraid of finding out. Kael's expression softened. Why? Because what if I discover I am someone I don't want to be? The question stayed between them. Kael looked toward the window. Toward the kingdom he had spent years protecting. I once thought losing my mate meant losing the part of myself that mattered. Elara listened quietly. But I was wrong. He turned back. Sometimes the things we lose are not gone forever. They return in ways we never expect. For the first time, Elara saw something beyond the Alpha King. A man carrying grief. Father. Someone who understood what it meant to rebuild after losing everything. Before she could answer, a sudden movement outside the window caught her attention. A shadow on the snowy mountains. Gone before she could be certain. But her instincts reacted. Someone was watching. The same feeling she had before the assassin came. Kael noticed her expression. What is it? Elara slowly turned toward him. I think. She looked toward the dark mountains. Someone is waiting for me. Far beyond the kingdom walls, beneath the banners of Shadowfang, Queen Selene stood before a gathering of warriors. The message had already been delivered. The lost princess was alive. And now the hunt had begun. The kingdom had changed since Elara arrived. Not in the way people expected. There were no armies at the gates. No burning villages. No immediate attack from enemy kingdoms. Instead, the danger moved quietly. Through whispers. Through closed doors. Through conversations that stopped whenever someone entered the room. The castle had become a place where everyone watched everyone else. And Elara felt it. Every day. She felt the eyes following her as she walked through the halls. Some servants lowered their heads respectfully. Others stepped away as if her presence carried danger. The guards remained polite. But they were always alert. As if they were protecting the kingdom from her instead of protecting her from the kingdom. Still she stayed. Because of the pups. Because she had promised. And because, for the first time in years, she wanted to discover the truth instead of running from it. The morning began quietly. Snow covered the courtyard while Elara sat beside the training grounds watching Rowan practice. The eldest prince held a wooden sword in his hands. His movements were careful, disciplined. But Kael noticed something immediately. The boy was holding back. Again. The Alpha King stood across from him, watching closely. Rowan nodded and attacked. Kael blocked easily. The wooden swords struck together. Again. And again. But Rowan's thoughts were somewhere else. Kael lowered his weapon. "You are distracted." Rowan looked down. "I'm fine." Kael's expression remained firm. A lifetime of leadership had taught him when someone was hiding pain. "Your mother used to say that phrase when she was trying to hide something." The boy became quiet. The mention of his mother always changed the atmosphere. Not painfully, but deeply. "I don't want Elara to leave." The honesty surprised Kael. Rowan stared at the snow-covered ground. "Everyone leaves." The words were quiet, but they carried years of fear. Kael looked at his son, a fear he understood too well. Before he could answer, Elara approached with Lyra and Finn. Finn immediately ran toward Rowan. "Your turn." The serious expression on the young prince's face disappeared slightly. A small smile appeared. Only a small one. But Kael noticed. Elara noticed too. She was beginning to understand something about this family. They were all wounded. But they were still trying to heal. Later that afternoon, the royal healer returned to the library with more ancient records. Elara had spent hours searching through them. Every page brought more questions than answers. "There are missing sections," she said. The healer nodded. "Many records from that time were destroyed." "By who?" The healer hesitated. "History remembers victories. Not always the people who were erased." The words unsettled Elara. She looked down at the pages. Family, kingdom, bloodline, all removed from history, except for one survivor. Or at least that was what everyone believed. The healer carefully studied her expression. "You do not have to become what others expect." Elara looked up. "What if I don't have a choice?" The older woman looked toward the window. Everyone born into power faces that question. Even kings. Elara thought of Kael. The man who carried an entire kingdom on his shoulders while hiding his own grief. The man who protected his people but struggled to protect himself. Before she could say anything, the library doors opened. Darius entered. His expression was calm. But his eyes immediately moved toward the scrolls. "The council requests an update." The healer quickly closed one of the ancient records. Darius noticed. Elara noticed him noticing. Small things. But dangerous things. "Nothing has been decided," Kael's advisor said. His voice remained polite. "Yet the kingdom grows impatient." Elara looked at him. "Because I am here." Darius gave a careful smile. "Because uncertainty is dangerous. People fear what they do not understand." The words sounded reasonable. But Elara heard the message beneath them. People feared her. Darius continued. "Queen Celine's demand has created tension. And some believe the safest path is removing that tension." The room became colder. Elara understood. They were not only discussing politics. They were discussing her existence. The healer stepped forward. "She saved the royal heirs." Darius nodded. "That is acknowledged. But kindness does not erase unanswered questions." He turned toward Elara. "What kingdom trained you to fight?" She froze. The question was simple, but impossible. "I don't know." Darius studied her. "And that does not concern you." Elara's expression hardened slightly. I have spent my entire life trying to understand that. Darius bowed his head. Of course. But his tone carried doubt. He left soon after. The moment the doors closed, Elara exhaled. The healer looked worried. Be careful with him. Elara turned. You don't trust him. The healer did not answer. She did not need to. That night, the castle became unusually quiet. Too quiet. Lord Darius walked through hidden corridors beneath the royal chambers. The same corridors built by kings who came before Kael. The same passages only a handful of people knew existed. He stopped before an old stone door. 3 knocks. Was. 2 more. The door opened. A shadowed figure waited inside. You were right, Darius said. His voice had changed. No longer respectful. No longer loyal. The princess lives. The figure remained silent. Darius continued. And she is inside Ashbourne's castle. A faint smile appeared. Good. The kingdom will fall apart when the truth comes out. Darius looked toward the distant sound of guards above. Kael is already becoming attached. The hidden figure answered. Then make him choose. Darius's eyes narrowed. Between the kingdom and the woman who will destroy it. Above them, unaware of the betrayal growing beneath their feet, Kael stood outside Elara's chamber. He had come to check on her, to make sure she was safe. But he stopped when he heard voices inside. Not Elara's. Someone else. A shadow moved beyond the corridor. And for the first time since returning from war, the Alpha King realized the enemy might not be waiting beyond his borders. It might already be inside his castle. The corridor was silent. Too silent. Kael stood motionless outside Elara's chamber, every instinct inside him awake. The castle had always been his strongest protection. Every stone wall, every hidden passage, every guard position. He knew them all. He trusted them all. But tonight, for the first time in years, he felt something he hated. Uncertainty. His hand moved slowly toward the door. Not his sword. Not yet. He listened. The voices inside faded. A moment later the door opened. A servant stepped out carrying empty dishes. She froze when she saw the Alpha King. My lord. Kael studied her face. She lowered her head quickly. Forgive me. I was only delivering dinner. Kael glanced past her. Elara sat near the fire, reading the ancient records. Alone. The servant walked away. But Kael remained where he was. Something felt wrong. Not because of Elara. Because of everything surrounding her. Since her arrival, every hidden truth in the kingdom seemed to be rising from the shadows. The lost bloodline. The assassin. Queen Celine's demand. And now the feeling that someone within his own walls was moving against him. Elara looked up from the scroll. You look like you found another war. Kael stepped inside. Perhaps I did. She studied his expression. What happened? He closed the door behind him. Nothing confirmed. The answer bothered her. You don't usually look worried over something unconfirmed. Kael almost smiled. Almost. You notice more than you should. Elara lowered her eyes. Survival. Simple word. But it explained so much. Kael walked toward the window. The castle is not as safe as I believed. Elara became serious. Because of me. He looked back. No. The answer came immediately. Then after a pause. Because someone thinks they can threaten what I protect. The words were not only about the kingdom. Elara noticed. But she did not comment. A quiet understanding passed between them. The next morning the castle gates opened. A group of royal messengers entered carrying supplies and official documents. Everything appeared normal. That was what made it dangerous. The attack did not come with weapons. Came disguised as routine. Lord Darius stood in the courtyard welcoming the messengers. His expression remained calm. His voice remained loyal. No one looking at him would have suspected anything. Except Kael. The Alpha King watched from the upper balcony. Something about Darius had changed. Not visibly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But Kael had spent years studying enemies. True enemy showed anger. Clever one showed patience. Darius had always been patient. Later that day, Kael entered the council chamber. The atmosphere changed immediately. The nobles stopped speaking. They knew the king had sensed something. "My lord," Darius greeted. Kael looked around the room. "Where are the reports from the eastern border?" Darius answered smoothly. "Already reviewed." "By whom?" Slight pause. "By me." Kael's eyes narrowed. "You were not given authority to make decisions regarding military movements." The room became quiet. Darius lowered his head. "I acted only to protect the kingdom." Those words. Always those words. Protect the kingdom. A phrase used by many who wanted power. Kael stepped closer. "Protection does not require secrecy." Darius remained composed. "Neither does leadership require suspicion of every loyal servant." The challenge was subtle. But it was there. For the first time, Darius was not simply advising. He was testing. Kael noticed. And so did everyone else. The room became colder. Before the tension could grow further, a guard rushed inside. "Your Majesty." Kael turned. "What happened?" The guard looked uneasy. "We found something at the western gate." "What?" The guard hesitated. "A symbol." Kael's expression changed. "What symbol?" The guard looked toward Elara, then back to the king. "The same symbol carried by the assassin." The room erupted. Voices filled the chamber. Fear, anger, suspicion. Darius remained silent. Too silent. Kael noticed. "What was found?" The guard placed a small piece of cloth on the table. A dark mark was stitched into it. The same crescent symbol connected to the moon crown bloodline. Elara looked at it. Her face became pale. "I have never seen that before." The nobles immediately reacted. "How convenient. She claims not to know anything. Yet everything leads back to her." Kael's voice cut through the room. "Enough." The command silenced everyone. But the damage was already done. Fear had entered the room. And fear was difficult to remove. That evening, Elara sat beside the fire with the pups. None of them understood the politics surrounding her. They only understood that something was wrong. Finn leaned against her shoulder. "Are you sad?" Elara looked down. She forced a small smile. "No." Finn frowned. He was too young to understand kingdoms. But he understood people. "You're doing the face." "The face. The one where you say you're okay." Elara looked away. A quiet laugh escaped her. "Real one. The first in days." "You notice everything." Finn nodded proudly. "I do." Rowan watched from nearby. Then he spoke. "They think you're dangerous." Elara became quiet. The boy continued. "But they don't know you." She looked at him. Rowan's expression was serious. "You stayed when everyone else would have left. You protected us. That matters." The words touched something inside her. Because Rowan was not offering blind trust. He was offering something stronger. Ois. Near midnight, Kael received the final report. The guards had searched the western gate. The symbol had not been planted by accident. Someone wanted it found. Someone wanted suspicion to grow. And then came the information that changed everything. A servant had discovered secret messages hidden inside supply records. Messages sent outside the kingdom. Messages containing information about Elara's location. About the royal family. About the castle defenses. Kael stood alone in his chamber reading the evidence. His face remained calm. But his wolf was already awake. Someone close to him had betrayed the throne. Someone with access. Someone trusted. The door opened. A guard entered and bowed. "Your Majesty." Kael looked up. "Who sent the messages?" The guard hesitated. Then placed the evidence forward. The name was written clearly. A name Kael had never expected to see. Lord Darius Blackthorne. For several seconds, The Alpha King simply stared. The man who had served his family for years. The man who stood beside the throne. The man who claimed everything he did was for the kingdom. Had been working against him. But before Kael could confront him, a new problem arrived. A shout echoed from outside. Then another. Guards rushed through the corridor. "My king!" Kael turned. What happened? The soldier's face was pale. The council chamber. He swallowed. They found evidence. Evidence against Elara. The words landed like a blade. Kael stepped forward. What evidence? The guard lowered his eyes. Enough to accuse her of treason. And somewhere inside the castle, Lord Darius Blackthorn prepared his final move. Because the next battle would not be fought with swords. It would be fought with trust. The kingdom gathered beneath a sky covered in dark clouds. The royal court had never felt so cold. Not because of the weather. Because of the judgment waiting inside the great hall. The doors opened slowly. Elara walked forward surrounded by guards. Not as a prisoner. But the whispers made it feel that way. Every step echoed across the stone floor. The same halls where servants once watched her with curiosity now watched her with fear. She kept her head high. But inside, every word cut deeper than any blade. Traitor. Threat. Lost princess. Enemy. The accusations followed her like shadows. At the center of the hall stood the royal council. And above them all sat Alpha King Kael. His expression was controlled. Almost emotionless. But Elara noticed the tension in his hands. The way his fingers pressed against the armrest. The way his jaw tightened every time someone spoke against her. He was fighting something. Not a battle outside the kingdom. A battle within himself. Because today he was not only a king. He was the man who had found a stranger protecting his children. The man who had begun believing her. And now the law demanded that he judge her. Lord Darius stood before the council holding the evidence. His face carried the appearance of regret. But Elara saw something beneath it. Satisfaction. Hidden. Careful. The facts are clear, Darius said. An unknown woman entered the sacred royal den. She carries a forgotten royal mark. An assassin attacked her after discovering her identity. And now evidence has been found connecting her to threats against the kingdom. Murmurs spread through the hall. Elara remained silent. 'Cause she knew something. People who had already decided the truth did not want answers. They wanted confirmation. Darius turned toward Kael. Your Majesty, no one wishes harm upon this woman. The lie sounded almost gentle. But a kingdom cannot survive by ignoring danger. Kael's eyes hardened. Careful, Darius. The advisor lowered his head. I speak only for the safety of the kingdom. The same words. Again. Always protection. Always duty. Always hiding ambition behind responsibility. The council members looked toward Elara. Waiting. Judging. Finally one elder spoke. Elara Nightbloom, do you deny the accusations? The entire hall became silent. Elara looked around. At the people who feared her. At the guards who once protected the castle. Kael. Then at the 3 children standing near the back of the room. Rowan. Lyra. Finn. They had been told to stay away. But they came anyway. Because they refused to abandon her. Elara took a slow breath. I deny being a traitor. Her voice was calm. I deny harming this kingdom. But I cannot deny that I have questions about myself. The honesty surprised some people. She continued. I do not know why I carry this mark. I do not know why enemies search for me. I do not know why someone believes I am a princess. Her eyes moved toward the ancient symbol displayed before the court. But not knowing my past does not make me guilty of crimes I did not commit. Silence. For a moment, even the council had no answer. Then Darius stepped forward. Beautiful words. His tone was polite. But kingdoms cannot be ruled by feelings. Elara looked at him. And they cannot be ruled by fear. The room reacted. Quiet shock. Because the woman everyone believed was powerless had just challenged one of the most influential men in the kingdom. Darius's expression changed slightly, only for a moment, but Kael saw it. The trial continued for hours. Witnesses spoke. Questions were asked. Every answer created more uncertainty. The evidence against Elara was suspicious, but the fear around her was real. And fear was enough to turn people. The nobles argued. The citizens outside the castle demanded protection. Some wanted her imprisoned. Some wanted her sent away. Few wanted to understand her. Through it all, Elara remained standing. Until the final accusation. Darius stepped forward holding a small piece of parchment. This was found hidden among her belongings. Kael's expression changed. What? The parchment was placed before the council. Carried enemy markings. The room erupted. Elara stared at it. I have never seen that before. Darius sighed. That is what everyone says when they are caught. For the first time, anger flashed across Kael's face. Not at Elara. At the manipulation happening before him. But the evidence was there. And the entire kingdom was watching. The king. The father. The ruler. Everyone waited for his decision. Kael looked at Elara. She did not beg. She did not cry. She simply looked back at him. And somehow that made the decision harder. Because he remembered the den. The storm. His children sleeping safely beside her. A stranger who had nothing but still gave them everything. The law demanded one thing. His instincts demanded another. Then a small voice interrupted the silence. No. Everyone turned. Finn stepped forward. The guards immediately moved. But Kael raised his hand, stopping them. The youngest prince walked into the center of the hall. His small hands were shaking. But he stood beside Elara. She didn't hurt us. His voice echoed through the room. She saved us. The nobles stared. Finn looked toward them. When we were alone, she stayed. She was scared too. But she protected us anyway. Elara's eyes filled slightly. She quickly looked away. Rowan stepped forward next. She earned our trust. Lyra followed. Her eyes distant, like she was seeing something others could not. The moon chose her. A strange silence filled the hall. Kael looked at his children, then at Elara. Something inside him broke. Because he realized the choice was no longer between law and emotion. It was between fear and truth. Clouds outside grew darker. The wind howled against the castle. The ancient symbol on the trial table suddenly began to glow. Everyone froze. The healer stepped backward. No. Kael stood. What is happening? No one answered. The moonlight broke through the clouds. A silver beam entered the great hall. And the mark on Elara's skin responded. Light spread across the ancient symbol. The entire kingdom watched as something impossible happened. The prophecy was not a story. Not a legend. Not a forgotten tale. It was alive. Elara looked down at the glowing mark. Her breathing stopped. A voice seemed to echo through the hall. Not from a person. Not from anywhere they could see. But from something ancient. Something that had been waiting. The moon goddess had answered. And before anyone could understand what it meant, the symbol revealed a hidden sign that had been lost for centuries. The same sign that would change everything. The great hall remained frozen in silence. No one moved. No one dared to speak. The silver light from the ancient symbol continued spreading across the stone floor, painting the walls with a glow that did not belong to fire or candlelight. It belonged to something older. Something sacred. Something the kingdom had forgotten. Elara stood at the center of the hall, unable to move. The mark beneath her skin burned softly. Not with pain. With recognition. For years, she had carried it without understanding. A symbol that felt like a question. Now, for the first time, it felt like an answer. The elders lowered their heads. Some in fear. Some in disbelief. The royal healer stared at the glowing sign with tears forming in her eyes. The moon goddess. Her voice barely escaped. She has answered. The words traveled through the hall. And suddenly the accusations that had filled the room felt smaller. The whispers of betrayal, the fear, the suspicion. All of it stood against something far greater. Darius remained still. Too still. Everyone else looked amazed. He looked threatened. Kael noticed. The Alpha King had spent years studying enemies. He knew the difference between surprise and fear. Darius was afraid. Not because of the miracle before them. Because the truth was moving closer. The light grew stronger. Then the ancient symbol changed. Lines that had been invisible for centuries appeared across the stone. The healer stepped closer, carefully studying them. This sign. Her voice trembled. What does it mean? Kael asked. The healer looked toward Elara. It means the bloodline was never truly lost. The hall erupted. Some nobles stepped backward. Others fell to their knees. The impossible had become real. The last moon princess was standing before them. Elara looked around at the people, suddenly seeing her differently. A moment ago they saw a threat. Now they saw a symbol. Prophecy. Possible queen. But she did not feel powerful. She felt lost. Because everyone finally knew what she was. Except her. She looked at Kael. I don't feel different. Her voice was quiet. I am still the same person. Kael walked toward her. The entire court watched. But he ignored them. You are. Elara looked at him. You are still the woman who protected my children. You are still the woman who entered this kingdom with nothing and gave more than she had. His voice lowered. The mark changes what people know about you. But it does not change who you are. For the first time that day, Elara allowed herself to breathe. Because Kael was not looking at her like a crown, or a weapon, or a prophecy. He was looking at her like Elara. The trial was suspended. The kingdom needed time to understand what had happened. But the damage had already been done. Some people who doubted her now bowed. Others remained silent. Because loyalty built on fear could change quickly. And Kael knew that. Prophecy could inspire hope. But it could also create war. Later that night, Elara stood alone on the castle balcony. The mountains stretched endlessly before her. Cold wind moved through her hair. The kingdom below looked peaceful. But she knew better now. Storm was coming. Kael approached quietly. She heard him before she saw him. You always walk like you are carrying the weight of the entire kingdom. He stopped beside her. Because I am. She looked at him. A small smile appeared. That sounds exhausting. It is. The honesty made her smile slightly. For a moment they simply stood there. No king. No lost princess. No prophecy. Just two people watching the night. Then Elara spoke. What happens now? Kael knew what she meant. Everything had changed. Before she was a mystery. Now she was a target. The kingdoms will hear about this. And they will come. She looked down. Because of the crown. Kael was quiet. Because of what the crown represents. Elara turned. What do you mean? Kael looked toward the mountains. The Moon Crown bloodline was believed to unite the divided kingdoms. His expression became serious. Some will want that unity. And others will want to control it. The answer frightened her. Not because of power. 'Cause she understood what it meant. Her existence had become a battlefield. Kael noticed her silence. You are thinking about leaving again. She did not deny it. If I disappear, maybe the kingdom stays safe. Kael turned toward her. No. The firmness in his voice surprised her. You cannot spend your entire life running from people who want to use you. She looked at him. And what should I do? His answer came after a pause. Stand. The word carried weight. Not because you are a princess. Because you are Elara. The wind moved between them. Quiet moment. A dangerous moment. 'Cause something was changing. Not love. Not yet. Something before love. Trust. Respect. A bond formed through survival. But while the castle tried to celebrate the revelation, darkness moved beyond its walls. A messenger arrived from the northern border. The enemy kingdoms had begun moving, not attacking, preparing. The news reached Kael before midnight. Queen Selene had gathered her forces. The Shadowfang kingdom was no longer watching. They were acting. Kael stood in the war chamber as reports were placed before him. His commanders waited. The lost princess had returned. And now every kingdom would decide whether to protect her or take her. A guard entered. "Your Majesty." Kael looked up. "What now?" The soldier hesitated. "There is another message." Kael opened it. The words were short, cold. A warning. The Moon Princess belongs to Shadowfang. Return her before blood covers the mountains. Kael crushed the message in his hand, because he finally understood. The trial was never the real battle. It was only the beginning. Across the border, inside the dark halls of Shadowfang Castle, Queen Selene stood before her throne. A smile slowly formed. The impossible had happened. The Moon Princess lived. And now the entire world would fight over her. "Prepare the armies," Selene ordered. Her eyes reflected the firelight. "Bring Elara back." Was alive. Far away, beneath the same moon, Elara touched the mark on her skin. She finally had an answer about her past. But the truth had created a greater danger than the mystery ever had. Because now everyone knew who she was. And the world would not allow the last Moon Princess to choose her own destiny. The first sound was not a sword. Not a scream. Not an army marching across the mountains. It was the horn. Heavy. A sound that shook the castle walls and carried across the frozen valleys. The kingdom had heard it before. Every warrior knew what it meant. War had arrived. Kael stood on the highest tower of Ashbourne Castle, looking beyond the walls. The mountains that had protected his kingdom for generations now hid an approaching storm. Torches moved through the snow in the distance. Thousands of them. The armies of Shadowfang were coming. The same kingdom that had demanded Elara's return. The same kingdom that knew exactly who she was. Behind him, the castle prepared for battle. Weapons were carried through the halls. Guards moved into position. Families were taken to safety. The peaceful silence that once surrounded the kingdom was gone. Now every breath carried fear. Kael's hand rested on the stone wall. 4 years he had fought to protect this kingdom. He had fought enemies who came with armies. Enemies who came with blades. Enemies who came openly. But this war was different. Because the person at the center of it was not a soldier. Not a warrior. Not someone who had chosen power. It was Elara. The woman who had entered his life as a stranger. The woman who had saved his pups. The woman who carried a destiny she never wanted. Footsteps approached. Kael turned. Elara stood there wearing light battle armor. Not a queen's crown. Not royal clothing. Simple protection. Her expression was calm. But her eyes revealed everything. Fear. Determination. Acceptance. "You should not be here." Kael's voice was firm. Elara looked beyond the walls. "And where should I be?" "Somewhere safe." A small sadness crossed her face. "That is what everyone keeps trying to do. Protect me. Hide me. Decide my future." She looked at him. "But this war is happening because of me." Kael stepped closer. "No." The answer was immediate. "This war is happening because someone believes they can own you." The words stayed between them. Elara looked away. For so long, she had believed her existence was the problem. The reason people suffered. The reason enemies appeared. But Kael saw something different. He saw someone being hunted. Not someone causing destruction. "I won't run." Her voice was quiet, but certain. Kael studied her. The woman who had once hidden from every shadow was now standing in front of one of the greatest dangers in the kingdom. Something had changed. Not because she discovered she was a princess. Because she finally believed she had something worth protecting. The war council gathered before sunset. The commanders stood around the large wooden table. Maps covered the surface. Enemy positions. Mountain path. defensive lines. Every choice carried consequences. Darius was absent, a fact no one ignored. After the discovery of his betrayal, Kael had removed him from his position. But his influence remained. Because betrayal did not disappear when the traitor was exposed. It left damage behind. One commander pointed toward the eastern valley. Shadowfang will attack from here. Another shook his head. They know the mountain paths. They will try to surround us. Kael listened silently. Then Elara entered. The room became quiet. Some warriors still looked uncertain. But none looked at her with the same hatred as before. The trial had changed something. They had seen the moon goddess answer. They could no longer pretend she was just a stranger. Elara approached the table. I know where they will come from. Everyone turned. Kael looked at her. How? She hesitated. 'Cause she did not know. Not completely. But something inside her had awakened. I don't remember. But when I look at the map. Her fingers moved toward the northern pass. I know. The commanders exchanged uncertain looks. Kael watched her carefully. Not because he doubted her. Because he knew this was part of something bigger. The lost memories. The hidden training. The bloodline. Everything was beginning to return. Then we prepare there. The decision was immediate. No hesitation. The room moved. Orders were given. The kingdom prepared. That night, before the battle began, Elara visited the royal chambers. The pups were there. Rowan tried to act strong. Lyra watched her with those mysterious eyes that always seemed to see more than others. Finn simply ran toward her. You are fighting. Lara knelt. Yes. Finn looked worried. Will you come back? The question was simple. But it carried the fear of a child who had already lost too much. Elara held his hand. I will try. Finn frowned. No. He shook his head. You have to promise. Elara looked at him. The same promise. The same little boy who had once feared being abandoned. I promise I will come back to you. Finn hugged her. Rowan looked away, pretending not to be emotional. Lyra stepped closer. The moon showed me something. Everyone became quiet. Kael looked at his daughter. What did you see? Lyra's expression became distant. Blood. Fire. Then she looked at Elara. But also light. The words created silence. No one understood. But everyone felt the weight of them. The battle began at dawn. The mountains shook. The enemy army descended through the snow-covered valleys. Ashbourne warriors stood behind the walls. Bows ready. Weapons raised. Kael stood at the front line. The Alpha King. The Protector. The Father. Beside him stood Elara. Not behind him. Beside him. The first attack came like a wave. Steel crashed against steel. The air filled with the sounds of battle. Kael moved through the enemy forces like a storm. Every strike controlled. Every movement precise. Elara fought beside him. And once again the forgotten training returned. Her body remembered what her mind could not. She moved with the skill of someone born for battle. Not because she wanted violence. Because she wanted to protect. Together they pushed back the attack. For a brief moment hope appeared. Then the enemy changed tactics. A horn sounded from the valley. Kael froze. That sound was not an attack signal. It was something else. Distraction. His instinct screamed. The pups. The realization came too late. While the main army attacked the castle walls, a second group had entered from the hidden paths. They were not coming for the kingdom. They were coming for the heirs. Kael turned. No. The single word carried more fear than any battlefield command. He started moving. But the enemy had already reached the castle. And when the gates opened, the message became clear. This war was never only about the crown. It was about forcing Elara to choose. The lives of the children she loved. Or the destiny she had spent her entire life running from. And as the castle alarms screamed through the mountains, Elara saw the enemy soldiers carrying something that made her blood turn cold. The royal pups were gone. The world seemed to stop. Elara stared at the empty chamber. Only moments ago, Finn's small hand had been holding hers. Only moments ago, Rowan had stood beside his brother, trying to look brave. Now they were gone. The sound of battle continued outside, but it felt distant, like the entire world had fallen silent around her. Kael entered the room moments later. One look at her face told him everything. His expression changed. Not the face of a king. The face of a father. No! The word broke from him. He searched the room as if refusing to accept what had happened. Then his eyes found the broken window, the open path, the truth. Someone had taken his children. Elara stepped closer. Her voice shook. They took them because of me. Kael looked at her. No. But this time the word carried pain. They took them because they wanted to break us. Outside, the enemy forces waited beyond the walls. Message arrived. Queen Selene had made her demand. Return the Moon Princess, or the pups would pay the price. Elara closed her eyes. The impossible choice stood before her. The crown she never wanted, or the children who had given her a home. And deep inside she already knew her answer. The battlefield was silent, not peaceful, waiting. The kind of silence that came before something changed forever. Elara stood beneath the cold moonlight, staring toward the enemy camp where the royal pups were being held. Every instinct inside her screamed to run toward them, to save them. But Kael stood beside her, wounded and exhausted. His eyes carrying the same pain. They both knew the truth. This was a trap. Queen Selene did not only want the Moon Princess. She wanted to destroy everything that Elara had begun to love. I will go. Elara's voice was calm. Kael immediately turned. No. She looked at him. If I am the reason they were taken, then I will bring them back. Kael stepped closer. You are not a sacrifice. The word struck her. Because for years that was all she believed she was. Something people hunted. Something people used. Something that existed only because of a prophecy. But then she heard Finn's voice in her memory. You promised. She looked at the mark on her skin. For the first time she did not see a burden. She saw a choice. The Moon Crown bloodline was not about power. It was about protection. And as the ancient symbol began glowing beneath her skin, Elara finally accepted the truth. She was not running from the crown anymore. She was walking toward it. The moonlight grew brighter. Not above the battlefield. Around Elara. The warriors watching from a distance became silent as the ancient mark on her skin awakened fully. For years, she had carried the symbol like a mystery. Like a wound. Like a reminder of everything she had lost. Now for the first time she understood. It was not a chain. It was a promise. Kael watched her carefully. He saw the change. Not a change in power. A change in the woman herself. The frightened survivor who once hid from her own past was gone. In her place stood someone who had finally chosen her destiny. The Moon Princess, one of the warriors whispered. But Kael shook his head. No. Everyone looked at him. He looked at Elara. She is Elara. The words mattered. Because he knew what she needed. Not a title. Not a legend. Be seen. Elara turned toward the enemy camp. The wind moved around her. And somewhere deep inside her memory, forgotten pieces began returning. A childhood beneath silver skies. A royal hall filled with moonlight. A voice telling her she would one day return. The truth was no longer hidden. She was the last heir of the Moon Crown bloodline. The lost princess everyone believed was gone. But before she could reclaim anything, she had to save the family she had chosen. Kael stepped beside her. You do not go alone. Elara looked at him. For a moment neither spoke. The bond between them had grown through fear, loss, and sacrifice. Not through promises. Through actions. She nodded. Together they moved toward the enemy. Not as a king and a lost princess. but as two people fighting for the same reason: to bring their family home. Inside the enemy camp, Queen Selene waited. She stood beneath dark banners, watching the approaching figures. A slow smile crossed her face. Everything was happening exactly as she expected. The Moon Princess had finally awakened, and now the world would see what true power looked like. But Selene did not understand one thing. Elara was no longer the frightened woman she had hunted. She was no longer running. She was coming for her children, and anyone standing between them would discover why the Moon Crown had survived. The final battle had begun. The mountains that had protected the kingdom for centuries now trembled beneath the force of two worlds colliding. Snow fell through the dark sky. Fire burned across the battlefield. The banners of Ashenfang moved like shadows against the white landscape, while the warriors of Ashbourne stood firm beneath the symbol of the Moon Crown. But this battle was no longer about kingdoms, no longer about power. It was about family. Elara walked through the battlefield with a purpose that no one could stop. Every step carried the memories of everything she had survived. The years running alone. The fear of never knowing who she was. The pain of believing she had no place in the world. But now she knew. She was not alone. Behind her stood people who believed in her. Beside her stood the man who had trusted her when the entire kingdom questioned her. And somewhere ahead were the children who had given her a home before she even knew she deserved one. Kael fought beside her. His armor damaged and his strength fading, but his determination stronger than ever. He had spent years protecting a kingdom while carrying a broken heart. Now he fought for something different. Future. Family. A reason to believe again. Across the battlefield, Queen Selene watched them approach. Her expression remained cold. You finally accepted what you are. Elara stopped. The wind moved between them. I accepted who I am. Selene's smile faded slightly. Because that was the one thing she had never expected. Elara did not want the crown for power. She wanted it because she understood what it meant. Responsibility. Protection. Sacrifice. The true strength of the Moon Crown had never been control. Had always been unity. And that was why Selene feared her. Because a queen who ruled through love was more dangerous than a ruler who commanded through fear. The battle reached its final moments. Darius stood among the enemy forces. The traitor who had once stood beside Kael's throne now revealed his true allegiance. His ambition had blinded him. He believed the kingdom needed a stronger ruler. Someone willing to take control. Someone like himself. But he had forgotten one thing. A throne built on betrayal could never create loyalty. When the truth of his actions was revealed, the warriors who once followed him lowered their weapons. The kingdom finally saw him for what he was. Not a protector. Not a loyal advisor. A man who had tried to destroy everything he claimed to defend. Kael looked at him with disappointment more than anger. You served my family for years. Darius lowered his eyes. And still you chose yourself. The words hurt more than any punishment. Because they were true. Justice had finally arrived. But the battle was not over. Not yet. A final clash remained. And as Elara moved toward the place where the pups were held, a powerful force struck from the shadows. Kael turned. Elara! The attack was meant for her. But Kael moved without hesitation. He placed himself between her and danger. The impact sent him crashing to the ground. For one terrifying moment, everything stopped. Elara dropped beside him. Kael! His eyes opened slowly. But his breathing was weak. The man who had protected the kingdom, the man who had protected his children, had fallen protecting her. And as Elara held his hand beneath the cold moonlight, she realized the greatest battle was not for the crown. It was for the man who had taught her that she was worth protecting. Elara held Kael's hand as the battlefield continued raging around them. For a moment she heard nothing. Not the clash of weapons. Not the cries of warriors. Not the storm moving across the mountains. Only his breathing. Weak. Uneven. The man who had carried an entire kingdom on his shoulders now lay wounded because he had chosen to protect her. Again. Just like he had protected her from the assassin. Just like he had protected her when the entire court questioned her. Just like he had protected her when she was only a stranger sleeping beside his children. Stay with me. Her voice broke slightly. Kael opened his eyes. A faint smile appeared. You are giving orders to a king now? Even wounded, he still tried to ease her fear. A small tear escaped before she could stop it. You are impossible. Kael looked at her. And in that moment, neither of them saw a princess or an alpha king. Only two people who had survived loss. Two people who had found something they thought they had lost forever. Reason to hope. The ancient mark on Elara's skin began glowing again. But this time it was different. The light was not filled with fear. It was calm, warm. The moon crown power that had awakened was not calling for destruction. It was answering a choice. A choice to protect, to heal, to unite. Elara placed her hand over Kael's wound. The warriors around them watched in silence as the moonlight surrounded them. The same power that had revealed her identity now revealed something greater. Her heart. Across the battlefield, Queen Selene watched everything unfold. For the first time, confidence disappeared from her face. She had believed the Moon Princess would become a weapon, a symbol she could control. But she had misunderstood the prophecy. The Moon Crown did not choose the strongest ruler. It chose the one willing to sacrifice everything for others. And that was why Elara was powerful. Not because of the blood in her veins. Because of the person she had become. Selene's forces began falling back. The rival kingdoms that had once feared the return of the Moon Princess now saw the truth. The lost heir had returned. Not to claim power. To bring peace. One by one, the warriors who had followed Shadow Fong lowered their weapons. The battle ended. Not with the destruction of an enemy, but with the end of a lie. Days later, Ashbourne Castle was filled with a different kind of silence. Not the silence of fear. The silence of healing. The wounded were recovering. The kingdom was rebuilding. The banners of war were replaced with banners of unity. Darius's betrayal was revealed before all the kingdoms. His alliance with enemy forces. His attempt to turn the people against Elara. His plan to control the throne. Everything was exposed. Justice was finally served. Queen Selene lost her power and was forced to answer for the destruction she had caused. The kingdoms that had once been divided began to come together. Because the Moon Princess had returned. And because she had chosen compassion over revenge. Kael recovered slowly. The injury had been serious. But he survived. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to heal. Not just physically. Emotionally. He no longer carried the belief that love only brought pain. Because love had returned to his life in a way he never expected. Not as a replacement for what he lost. But as something new. Something different. Something real. Elara stood beside him during the rebuilding of the kingdom. She accepted her place as queen. Not because a prophecy demanded it. Not because a bloodline required it. Because the people chose her. Because the pups chose her. Because Kael chose her. The three children who had once been alone now had something they had forgotten existed. Family. Rowan no longer carried the fear that everyone would leave. Lyra's visions no longer felt like a burden. Finn no longer feared waking up alone. The den where Kael found Elara was no longer a place of mystery. It became the place where everything began. Months later, beneath the light of the full moon, Elara stood beside Kael overlooking the kingdom. The mountains were peaceful again. The people below celebrated a new era. A kingdom once divided was finally united. Kael looked at her. Do you ever miss the life you had before? Elara thought about the question. The girl who had spent years running. The woman who had survived without knowing why. She looked toward the castle. Toward the family she had found. No. A gentle smile appeared. Because I did not lose my old life. I found my real one. Kael took her hand. No grand declaration. No rushed promises. Only a quiet understanding between two people who had chosen each other through everything. The moon crown had returned. The kingdom had found peace. And the lost princess had finally found home. But far beyond the northern mountains, something ancient moved beneath the frozen earth. An old prison cracked. A forgotten power awakened. A figure sealed away for centuries opened his eyes. The return of the moon bloodline had reached places even the oldest kingdoms had forgotten. And in the darkness beyond the mountains, a voice whispered, "The princess has returned." And now, the world will remember why she was hidden.